Go ahead and start with your name, the position here at MFL MarMac, and all of that.
Great. My name is Christina Harbaugh. I teach the 7th and 8th grade band and the high school band, and then this year we added music theory during first semester for the first time. And I've been here, this is my 3rd year.
3rd year. And so with music theory, because I looked a little bit as far as what your coach had already sent in as far as your topic and everything, how did you decide, or why did you decide on this to be your personal topic for your personalized PD journey?
I hadn't taught music theory before, and so I wanted to make sure that I was approaching it in a way that would challenge the kids to be in upper level thinking. So we're just really trying to push into the upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And then it's also, because the classroom, music theory is more of a standard classroom than band is, which is kind of out of where I'm usually at. I'm usually in rehearsal mode and not in, you're going to sit here and we're going to do this. And so I wanted to make sure that I kept the hands-on upper level learning aspects of music application in the music theory class.
So when we talk about the process of personalized PD, and you kind of start with what we might call sort of the weak spot, what did you consider as the area that you felt probably needed to be strengthened when attacking this?
Music theory is a lot like math, and so it very frequently turns into sit and get. And I didn't want it to be that way because it builds on itself, and so you have to learn the basic, and then it just keeps building up, scaffolding up a lot like math does. They're surprisingly similar, and so I wanted to be very careful to avoid the sit, and we're going to do this over and over, and then we're going to do the next step over and over, that it can take on pretty easily.
So that even doing something new, you felt that you hadn't really established weaknesses yet, but you foresaw that as being a possible weakness that might come about before the instructional part even started.
Right.
So in order to combat that, what was some of the research that you did and dug into to sort of figure out how can I avoid that when implementing this new class?
I just tried to dig in really deeply to find hands-on applications and find ways to do even the basic concepts to have the kids analyze and create and experience them instead of just memorizing what the note names were and things like that. And then along the way, kind of just ran into different things to help the kids really take more ownership of that and feel a little more in control of what they were learning.
Okay, so what kind of things did you find in your research that helped you to develop some of those ideas ahead of time?
The thing that I ran into the most was self-assessment. Really helps them, especially in music theory. I found that it helped them get to the upper levels faster, and it helped them take a little more ownership of the trip along the way. It helped with. I was trying to avoid, where I just sit here and give you all the facts, and then 3 months later you can mysteriously write music and you don't know how it happened. That we didn't want that to happen, and so I was trying to build in that skill of them being to evaluate their own work really early on, and then build from there so that they could be writing their own stuff on their own time and know how to check it.
So all the stuff on self-assessment that you found, were you looking at blogs? Were you, was it a conference you went to that sparked this? Or where was this information that you were seeking out? Where did you find this information?
With our RCD training, they referenced a book that was listing out, I don't even know what you
Hattie's.
Oh, Hattie's work?
Yep.
Yeah, John Hattie.
Yep. And they said that self-assessment was really high up on the list, and it was surprising to me. It was higher than I thought it would be. I mean, we all know that self-assessment is important, but a lot of times it ends up being like the pre-self-assessment and the post-self-assessment, and we kind of take it out of the process in the middle, which I would argue is where it matters the most, because the kids know they don't know it, and then they know it, but they don't know how they got there, and they need that self-assessment in between to know how they learned it. And then I also I was researching one day, and I ran across a TED Talk about Coursera, it's like an online, college courses available online for free or for a really reduced price. And they found that with classes that they couldn't do the lower level, like the true false questions into the computer kind of stuff, that self-assessment was actually just as accurate as the professor's assessment would have been. So, because they graphed it out and it was like the professor's assessment is here and the peer assessment is right along that line, and self-assessment was almost exactly over top of the teacher's assessment.
Interesting.
It's almost perfect with it. So that kind of made me think, well, you know, if they've done these studies and they've found that the self-assessment is pretty much exactly where the teacher would assess it, then why am I not giving these kids these tools to self-assess their own work all throughout, just to kind of ingrain that metacognition process.
So have you done anything with self-assessment outside this music theory class first? Because you said you've been in this position for 3 years. Is that your 3 total years of teaching?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So in the starting off in your career, have you had any chance to do that yet?
I have, but it was usually very much, you come into band, what do you want to learn this year? Where do you think you're at? We just had a concert, what went well? What do you want to change? And we didn't do a lot of the in-between.
Okay. And so would you say that was kind of like the big, because you've mentioned it twice, that in-between part.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that was kind of the biggest aha moment for you in trying to implement this into your music theory class?
That was one of them, yes. I just, that's the way it's usually been modeled for me. That's the way we usually see it, is that we self-assess before and after. And I just didn't really think about self-assessing in between and the effect that would have on their overall growth. And I didn't fully realize, I think we all do it, we're always really hesitant to let kids that are not high achieving grade their own work.
Yeah.
Because there's always that one kid that gives himself an A+ when they didn't give you anything, you know?
Sure.
And so I was hesitant to let them grade their own work, but I actually found that even with the lower achieving kids, I had a student give themselves an F. Like they were still very aware of what they were doing, and there was more ownership with that. Because if I would have given him an F, he would have fought it. But if he gave himself an F, he's like, yep, I deserved it. So.
Did you find that those students were actually did they have the biggest gains then?
Well, and that kind of led to more questions, to be honest with you. Because
Okay.
I had one student that started out and was kind of struggling with the concepts. And once we started self-assessing, he started to seem to really understand what we were looking for and how to find it and then apply that to the next time. And I also had a student that just continued to not do his work. And because some kids do, and so that kind of led into where I'm at now. Now I'm researching just the different ways to build that self-efficacy and to build the intrinsic motivation in kids and what the common risk factors are for them to not have those things, and how we can kind of supplement to give them those skills in school.
So this journey has already led to what you feel could potentially be the next journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
awesome. So in that research phase, you have all of that, and then transitioning into that integration phase, which you've already kind of talked about a little bit.
Yep.
What was the thing that you were looking for? Maybe there were multiple things that you were looking for that you felt would tell you that this is working.
Well, one of them was that they almost always gave themselves the same grade.
Okay.
When we first started out, I would grade their work and not show it to them, and then I would give them the rubric for it, and I'd be like, grade your work, tell me what you did. And the percentages weren't always the same, but the letter grade that they came out to was almost always exactly the same.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if I gave them an A, they gave themselves an A or a B, you know, and if I give them a C, they gave themselves a C. And it almost always lined up really well, which was surprising to me because some cynical teacher part of me always thinks that if you let them self-assess, they're just going to give themselves an A, and they actually don't.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing that I found was that the longer they did it, not only did they showed more gains in their development, they seemed to have deeper understandings and get into those higher levels faster, but they also got more critical as they went on. So it's like they started out right on with me, and by the end of the class, it'd be like I'd be giving them an A and they'd be giving themselves a C, you know, because they were finding more things that they could improve on, and I was surprised at how well they had learned to be really critical thinkers and to figure out where their problems were.
And so that, as the teacher of the class, told you that this whole self-efficacy process is working. Because you also saw, as you had mentioned, you also saw some gains, and they become much more critical of themselves. Okay.
So they just that they became more comfortable with that metacognition process, and then they also, they were just better self-assessors.
Mm-hmm.
Almost to like at one time I was just like, okay, I know that you did it. They're like, there's so many mistakes. I was like, okay, but let's look at the overall thing. Let's look at where you came from. Like, this is still really good work, you know.
So you, in turn, so they were sort of looking at the final product, but you kept refocusing back to look at the process.
Right.
Of how look at the gains you had, even though you may not be where you want to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
We can still get there. That's really good. And so in that integration phase, would you feel that was probably, out of all the phases that you've been through, that's the one where you probably spent the most time?
Probably.
Yeah. And were there any major hurdles or some the roadblocks that you kind of had to overcome in that integration process? Or what were the things you've tried and maybe didn't work, but you kept tweaking it to make it right?
It was the first time I taught the class,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a little bit, there's some give and take, you know, and there were spots that they go through faster than you think they would, and there were spots that take a lot longer, so like the first part of the class took longer than I had estimated that it would take, but by the end of the class they got farther than I had planned for them to get, because they were becoming better at that self-assessment process and kind of filtering their own work.
So almost kind of like the old adage of to get farther, you have to start slower.
Yeah.
Almost in a way.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, is this done in is it a paper form, or do you have like specific questions that you pull from to help them sort of reflect? And I imagine it's not just give yourself a grade A, B, C, D, or F. That there's a little more to it.
When I gave them projects, there would be certain things that I would want them to put into it. So we would have just learned, these 5 concepts, and it would be like, okay, now I want you to take these 5 concepts, and I want you to write me a 12-measure song,
Mm-hmm.
using these 5 concepts, and like, here's the list, and then I would tell them, okay, well, here's the list of what you had, this is what I gave you, how did you do, and it started out like, give yourself a grade for each of the concepts, and then as they got better at it, it kind of gradually turned into, with this in mind, what your assignment was, how well did you do it?
Right.
So it was a little more structured at the beginning, and then by the end of the class, it was just kind of like, okay, well, up on the board, that's what I told you to do.
Mm-hmm.
How to go,
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they could write out, and they would write reasons for it. They would be like, I think this went well, I think this went badly.
So they're articulating their critical
Yep.
feedback. And so, have you had a chance to do the reflection phase yet, and share within your district?
That is, well, we have it scheduled for the next day that we have.
Okay.
First PD. We haven't had it for a couple weeks yet. So.
And then this, of course, when we were able to put this on the website, this will obviously count sharing outside your district.
Mm-hmm.
And what hope, or I should say, let's back up a second. What would you say is the biggest thing that you may have learned about yourself as an educator in this process, or as a learner as well?
I think that students are a lot better at evaluating their own work if they're set up to do it well than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, that cynical part of us is always just like, well, we can't let them give themselves a grade.
Mm-hmm.
But truth be told, most of the grades for music theory, my grade and their grade were the same, so that's what they got.
That's
and
cool.
If they were different, I usually just averaged them, because
Mm-hmm.
there's usually not a huge difference. And that was surprising to me. I also kind of underestimated. I think we miss it in the middle. We need to teach them how to self-assess along the way, so they know how they get from point A to point B, and they know what that thinking process is, because that thinking process carries over to everything else that they're ever going to do. And if we don't teach them that, because that's what we usually do with self-assessment is, this is where you start, this is where you are, but we don't teach them what happens in between.
Right.
And that in between is the part that they need to have to apply to all the other parts of their lives.
So are you already seeing how this can be implemented even in other parts, like other classes, other than just music theory?
I think that self-assessment is valuable in all learning environments. And I think that at least in my schooling experience, like when as a student,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it used to its full potential.
Okay. And so, what would then be your goal, I think, going beyond this, as far as sharing this story out? Like, who do you feel would benefit from your journey that could learn something and then maybe take something from it and improve their own instruction from it?
Really, I think it ties over to anybody that's working in an education setting.
Okay.
You know, when anybody that's teaching in any form, what we really need to do is we need to teach the kids how to learn. You know, it's not so much about do they know how to write minor melodies or do they know how to write this English paper as it is, like, do they know how to get there? Do they know how to figure it out? Because there are a lot of things that they'll have to learn that they're not going to have a teacher to teach them.
So what, out of this whole process, from identifying a weak spot, which let's be real, isn't the most fun part of our job, to
Right.
admit that we're not good at something
Right.
and that we need to make it better. That's a really hard thing for educators to do sometimes. But from finding the weak spot to the research phase, to the integration phase, to even having this conversation and the idea of maybe possibly sharing this out to other educators, what's been the most fun part of the whole process, or the most enjoyable?
I really enjoy research, to be honest with you. That's probably not the normal person answer. I like to learn things,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to play with them and experiment. So kind of that research integration, and for this, it ended up being that I was researching and integrating kind of at the same time.
Yeah,
I
you kind of
really,
had to, because you were
Right.
developing the class.
yeah. So I really enjoy just kind of that research integration part where I'm learning new things, I'm finding new things, and then I can put it right into the classroom right away and try it and see how it works and tweak it and make it better. I enjoy that. I don't mind reflecting and sharing with people,
Yeah.
but I really enjoy just the hands-on, I'm going to learn something new today.
And it wasn't necessarily peer-reviewed journal article kind of research.
Right.
It was wherever you felt you need to go
Mhm.
to get your information,
Yep.
right? And I think that's so important for all educators to realize is we can learn from each other within our own
Right.
district, outside our district, through social media, whatever it may be. There's always that opportunity to learn for us.
Right.
Is there anything else you wanted to share about your journey that we kind of left out?
I think that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, it sounds like you really had a growth of a journey in coming from, I remember being third-year teacher and then even learning new things there that could carry on for your entire career of teaching, which is kind of exciting. So thank you for talking with me today,
Yes.
and I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can allow other teachers to see this and then be able to learn from your journey as well.
That would be great.